Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates, also known as the Mighty OGO. If you're watching at home, I hope you will like and subscribe and give us a raving 5-star review.
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
Minister, yesterday it was reported in the CBC that 13 federal agencies are now using spyware normally associated with the intelligence world. The article stated that the tools in question can be used to recover and analyze data found on computers, tablets, and mobile phones, including information that has been encrypted and password protected. None of these federal departments fulfilled the required privacy impact assessment necessary to determine what privacy risks exist by using these technologies. So these include texts, emails, search histories. Minister, why is your government so hell-bent on invading the privacy of Canadians?
Actually, I would not agree with the premise of the question, although I will say that we need to make sure.
Why would you not agree with it, Minister? This falls under your purview, under Section 3.3 of the Directive on Privacy Impact Assessment. So I'd like to hear from you, please. Why do you not believe that this falls under your purview?
I believe that the role of the President of the Treasury Board is to put in place directives and other policies that guide the public service as well as ministerial roles across the public sector.
Guide the public service, Minister, but also protect them. So what are you going to do now that this report is out there about these 13 agencies, these public servants that are having not only their privacy invaded, everyone that they have communicated with, be it by text, email, their search histories, if they've looked up, say, perhaps an illness that their child is having, anything like this is now potentially within the hands of the government. So what are you going to do now, Minister, that we are aware of this?
If I could just clarify.
I'm finishing my question, Minister, please. So explain to Canadians, please, what are you going to do now as a result of this gross invasion of the privacy of Canadians?
Mr. Chair, can I just ask point of order?
Yes,
Mr. Chair, I'm riveted by the questions that are being asked, but I am looking to hear the President of the Treasury Board respond. So if you can provide
not a point of order, and I would just ask that we do not interrupt people with non-point of orders, please. I understand what you're saying, but it's not a point of order. Everyone will ask that you stop interrupting each other on fake point of orders. Please continue, Ms. Cusi.
Thank you very much. So, Minister, I'll give you, again, an opportunity to tell Canadians, to tell the public service, what are you doing right now to protect their privacy? What are you doing after you saw this report yesterday?
Our government will always take all necessary steps to ensure that public servants are complying with all laws, including privacy laws and the protection of our employees' personal data. Deputy heads of federal institutions are responsible for initiating the directive on privacy, and will make sure that that continues to occur.
Okay. To add insult to injury, with not only this terrible privacy breach, earlier this week, the Chief Information Officer of Canada resigned. This is an industry-tested individual that impressed me every single time that she was committee. She had 2 years to begin to formulate this plan for digital government, which, according to social media this week, Minister, you claim to be committed to, you claim to want to take a leadership role in. And yet your Chief Information Officer resigned this week. So do you take personal responsibility for the lack of direction, the lack of leadership that she required in an effort to provide the entire framework of technology within the public service for Canadians? I mean, this has serious implications for Canadians, for service delivery. What's your response to that, Minister?
Well, I'd first like to thank the Chief Information Officer for her excellent work for the Government of Canada. When she was hired, it was wonderful to have such expertise from the private sector come to inform our work. This is a whole of government approach We have multiple systems upgrades underway, and I will continue to work with Minister Beach, who is the new responsible Minister for Citizen Services, in terms of our additional upgrades to our digitization and to our systems. But make no mistake, we are very much committed to making government processes more efficient for the Canadian public.
Well, I'm incredibly concerned. This was, as I said, an industry-tested individual. Every time she was before committee, I thought, this is fantastic. I believe in this individual. I believe that this individual, this public servant, has the capacity to come up with a digital plan, a digital solution across government. And we need 500 more IT professionals like her to get things to a place where they need to be, as we saw as well, with the reports of the Auditor General as well, saying that digital government is really suffering, and that service delivery for Canadians as a result of our lagging in digital solutions. So please tell Canadians now what your plan is, now that your top technology officer, your CIO, has gone, I can't fix this, I can't solve this. What's your plan, Minister?
About 30 seconds, please.
We agree with the recommendations of the Auditor General, and we are accelerating and expanding the use of Canadian digital service across government. The work is ongoing. I have been in this post just since the end of July, and since that time, I am taking a very aggressive approach to making sure that we undertake systems delivery across this government for the benefit of the citizens of Canada and especially the Canadian taxpayer.
Minister, you reflected on your time as the Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Obviously, that was from 2019 to 2021. And during that time, you oversaw Canada's procurement processes during the COVID-19 pandemic. I would suggest processes that were, some processes that were abandoned or replaced with measures which made it easy for the current Liberal government to actually exploit the pandemic and award contracts to Liberal insiders and their friends. My first question to you, Minister, is during the advent of ArriveCan, do you recall who made the decision to go with the ArriveCan app?
I thank the honourable member for the question. I would like to wish her a very happy birthday from afar. I will clarify, just in reference to your question, that none of the contracts relating to that app came through my office. The CBSA, I understand, is the business owner. PSPC was the contracting authority, but the contracts were executed at the ADM level or below. So I didn't sign off on this matter. I do take the point that we need to continue to improve our processes in this manner, and so I have asked my department, some of the officials of whom are here, to ensure that we are reviewing supply arrangements, to make sure that we're working with PSPC so that they can examine the profit margin on these contracts so that we can provide guidance to auditors in these matters, and that we can work with PSPC to modernize training for procurement specialists. Again, I did issue the manager's guide relating to third-party contracting very early in my tenure, recognizing that we can do more work in this area.
Thank you very much, Minister. As I'm sure you are aware, earlier this fall, numerous contracting discrepancies were reported in the Globe and Mail, which has resulted in a criminal investigation. These discrepancies involve 3 companies and the CBSA. And this has resulted in accusations that are very serious and include identity theft, collusion, forged resumes, and fraudulent contracting. So while I hear what you have said about the measures that you are undertaking to ensure proper training for individuals who are involved in the contracting process, my question to you would be whether or not the Treasury Board is conducting a review of what happened with the ArriveCan contractors, and will your department follow the CBSA's example and ban the companies involved from government contracts for at least 180 days due to the revelations uncovered at this committee.
So the role of Treasury Board is very much forward-looking. It is to put in place directives and policies that will support good practices and good governance in the public service. That's why the Manager's Guide on Procuring Professional Services is forward-looking and is hopefully going to be very useful for our procurement specialists. But we are working with PSPC in their matters relating to outsourcing, for example, reviewing the supply arrangement, looking at profit margins, making sure that they are able to modernize training for procurement specialists. I will say this matter has multiple reviews underway, the OAG and other bodies. We will be following this progress of the multiple reviews, but the actual matter of reviewing this particular contract is not under Treasury Board.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, I'm sure you have seen the economic report out today. The economy shrunk by 1.1% in the third quarter. Our deficit is currently at $40.1 billion. Debt servicing is now at $46.5 billion, which is more than we spend on health, as pointed out by my leader. Minister, I said this to your predecessor when she came to committee previously. Fundamentally, inflation comes down to the Treasury Board because these rates are so high, this inflation so high is a result of government spending. All of the money from the government, Minister, goes through you. You are the one who signs the checks for the release of these funds. So given... And you will note, Minister, that she is no longer in your chair, that you are there now. So I'm asking you, do you take personal responsibility for this terrible situation that we're in now with these record high inflation rates, record high interest rates, which we are now starting to see permeate throughout the economy? For example, with the TD announcement yesterday and the loss of thousands of jobs. And this is only the beginning of it, Minister. What is your response for the spending record of your government as President of the Treasury Board?
The Government of Canada is actually on a strong fiscal track, contrary to the implication in your question. We have a AAA credit rating, which is an objective evaluation of our fiscal situation. We have the lowest debt to GDP ratio.
Minister,
in
you
the
say
G7,
lowest debt to GDP,
and
but it's disingenuous when the nominal states otherwise. $80,000 per U.S. citizen, only $50,000 here in Canada. So I think it's very disingenuous to say that. I'll lay out the facts for the $15 billion that you promised you would find by October 2nd, but didn't even make any announcement, report in doing so, and only $500 million, a paltry $500 million this year, which, by the way, is only 2.03% of the additional $24.6 billion of the new spending since the 2023 budget. The $500 million of savings are only 2.31% of the record high proposed authorities, professional and special services, which sits at $21.6 billion. And the $15.4 billion of cuts over the next 5 years is only 11.69% of the deficits from this fiscal year throughout the next 5 years, Minister. So with that, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Larry Brock.
Minister, GC Strategies, a two-person consulting firm operating out of their basement, producing no product or IT services, received $44 million in 2 years. Of that, $11 million went to ArriveCan alone. GC Strategies under criminal investigation for theft, fraud, and forgery for the last 10 months has still been awarded contracts by CBSA, notwithstanding their suspension of contracting services to GC Strategies. Why has not the Treasury Department, your department, banned GC Strategies from all contracting from all government departments?
It's actually misleading to say that we are not finding the $15 billion over 5 years in
Please answer my question, please. Minister Anand, I asked you a question. You're responding to my colleague Stephanie Kuzi's question.
Because I didn't have a chance to respond.
And I would like a response to my question. I have literally less than 1 minute, so please, out of respect, can you please answer my question?
The role of the Treasury Board is, as I mentioned, to ensure that the practices, procedures, and guidelines are in place for public servants and their managers to follow. That is why I implemented and released the guidelines on procurement strategies.
Question is, why have you not banned GC strategies across the board? $11 million of taxpayer funds for doing nothing under criminal investigation. What does it take, Minister, for you to respect the taxpayer dollar?
I would like to reiterate that my role as Treasury Board President is to ensure that the policies and the practices and the procedures are in place from a governance perspective to make sure that there are responsible procurement practices in place in the public service. Within just 4.5 months since being appointed, I have taken some steps to ensure that this is the case by issuing the guidelines for procurement
That is our time,
of third
Minister.
parties, as well as
Perhaps,
undertaking
one
a
of your
spending
colleagues
review.
can
Thank you.
follow up on that. Mr. Brock.
Thank you, Chair. And my questions, folks, can be answered by anybody. Okay, no one in particular. I had to rush my questions with the minister. Unfortunate, I only had 2 minutes to do that, so I'm going to slow down just a little bit. The Prime Minister is on record after it was revealed publicly that the ArriveCam app totaled close to $54 million, notwithstanding his previous announcements that it was half the cost. And he's on quote to saying that the contracting patterns related to the ArriveCam warranted a policy review. Obviously, this is a practice that seems highly illogical and inefficient. So my questions are in relation to GC strategies. Everyone here, I'm sure, is familiar with GC strategies. The news regarding GC literally comes out every week. The president of GC strategies attended that committee on a couple of occasions and freely admitted to criminality in terms of deliberately altering not once but up to 6 times data without the permission and consent on the resumes of the 2 individuals who operate Bottler AI, and submitted that to the government just so that they would be approved for funding. That attracts criminal law consideration. That attracts fraud. That attracts forgery. The people from Bottler alleged a number of other criminal acts that they could be involved in. As a result of that, some 10 months after the complaint was submitted to the president of CBSA, I believe her name is Miss O'Gorman, she ultimately suspended all contractual work, not only to GC Strategies, but the other 2 partners, Dalian and Cordex. Then I find out, or the committee has found out, that notwithstanding that suspension, that GC Strategies is still eligible for bidding on government contracts. So my question is this. Obviously, there has to be some general policy that the Government of Canada adheres to, or at least the Treasury Board adheres to, that flags certain companies that are bidding on contracts that are under criminal investigation by a police agency. Is there not something that is flagged? This entity is no longer eligible until such time as the investigation is complete?
So thank you for the question. So what you're kind of getting at is what's the compliance structure in the Government of Canada? And that falls within the purview of PSPC. So the reason, and this is me following the committee and everything, the reason CBSA could suspend with those 2 companies is they actually used part of their contract. It's a general contract provision for them to suspend for 180 days. Then I understand PSPC, and I believe they were here Tuesday, and they talked about the fact that they've gone out to all the chief security officers now across government to redo all the security checks and have those departments look at their active contracts. It is under the integrity regime, which has an eligibility and suspension policy by which you could do something government-wide. Because the companies are under investigation by the RCMP, right now it doesn't trigger that suspension under the ineligibility.
And I get that. I was anticipating that.
Yeah.
My previous career was in criminal justice as a Crown attorney, and I know that there's a presumption of innocence, and this company has that, but this is more outside of the realm of presumption of innocence. We have direct evidence from the principal, Mr. Firth, admitting to criminality. So my question to you is, with that direct evidence from the president, does that not, because your department's all about accountability and ethics, doesn't that rise to a level that out of abundance of caution to protect taxpayer funds, that this entity should be suspended pending the completion of the investigation? I think taxpayers would expect that at a basic level. Do you not agree?
So I've been watching all the testimony at this committee. And because those allegations are with the RCMP for review and it's still under investigation, you have to wait until that investigation is done.
Mr. Firth admitted to manipulating resumes without permission and consent. That's a criminal act.
You're not going to like my answer, I apologize. But because it's still under investigation by the RCMP, we have to wait for that.